consumers are telling you how they're using your product. They're telling you how they love your product. And if you can bring that to life, it is so rich.
Are you a fitness-loving foodie? Then Defy Snacks is for you. Defy offers real, high-quality chocolate you love, combined with functional ingredients, giving you as much as 26 grams of protein per bag, so you can be both a little bit bad and a little bit good at the same time. As a female-owned brand, Defy dedicates a portion of its profits to other women-owned businesses. Currently sold in the US, you can find us on snacks.com and follow us on social at Defy Snacks.
Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, the creative effectiveness ad tech platform, and it is my joy and massive pleasure to interview some of the most amazing people in our industry. And this week is no different. I'm on a call with Caitlin Dodd, who is Director of Marketing in the hair and skincare team at Church and Dwight. So Caitlin, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you give them a bit of background?
Absolutely. Tom, great to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I am the director over our hair care businesses. So I've been at Church and Dwight for 9 years, and consumer goods brand management was always a goal of mine. Dialing back to my undergrad university days, I double majored in economics and advertising. I've always had this balance of creativity and analytics. Right out of school, I spent a lot of my time in consulting, but quickly realized there wasn't enough creative outlet for me in that career. So I decided to pursue my MBA with the specific goal of transitioning into CPG brand management. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that. I've been at Church and Dwight ever since I graduated McCombs Business School. So I've been at Church and Dwight now for 9 years. I've worked in fabric care, I've worked in personal care, and now I'm in the beauty space with hair care. It's been an amazing journey, and I am thrilled to lead an amazing team with amazing brands.
Right. I have very high expectations of this podcast now. So thank you for the introduction. So what advice would you give to a student who wanted to follow in your footsteps? They're doing all the sensible things, but what advice would you give someone to get ahead and maybe replicate your path?
I love this question. And I think there's two mantras that I try to follow that I love to pass on to any, young individuals looking to get into this career. And those two things are: you don't ask, you don't get. And just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. So some examples of how I've used those in my journey. For you don't ask, you don't get. While I was doing full-time recruiting in business school, looking at various jobs, I came across a press release from a company that I admired, and I thought what they were doing was so interesting. So I emailed the email address at the bottom of that press release, explained why I thought it was interesting, and told them I wanted to work on it. That ultimately led to interviews and a job offer. It's not where I ended up. It wasn't Church and Dwight, but that opportunity never would have presented itself if I didn't reach out and I didn't ask for that opportunity to get involved. My second piece of advice that I mentioned was just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. In a career like marketing, you are constantly faced with new things. Test and learn is a concept we hear all the time. And I'm going back many, many years now, but when I was going through recruiting processes, over a decade ago, video calls were not a thing. So all interviews were phone calls or in-person interviews, right? Technology has changed that, but I wanted to make myself stand out as a candidate. So I recorded a video resume and put it on YouTube with a link on my actual resume, so people could see me and hear me and get an impression before I went in. So I just encourage people to find ways, to both stand out, but also be open to change and be willing to try new things.
I'd probably go even further, certainly in a marketing realm, and say If it's not different, it's wrong. Because I think there's too much copying. There's way too much copying in advertising. Everyone's like, hey, let's do what they're doing because that's best practice. But if everyone copies each other, then no one's marketing, right? And you've said that even in, job hunting, right? Putting your own video resume on there, or CV, as we call them in the UK. And YouTube's bold, man. You're not shy. Like just emailing someone out of the blue, going, gives a job. That's fantastic.
Well, the interesting thing is it got followed by a video of me on a flying trapeze. So that always led to very interesting questions on the actual interview.
Right, brilliant. So, unfortunately, I want to hear more about that. Yeah, go on, tell me the trapeze story. What was that? Like, you have to tell me. I need to hear.
Absolutely. I spent 3 years in my early 20s as a flying trapeze student. It was something I was so passionate about and loved. I did basically recitals, performances. I was never a professional, always just a student. And as I moved around, there are not flying trapezes everywhere. So that was a hobby that I had to give up. But just 1 month ago, I had an opportunity to take a class again. And I'm thrilled to say that I still got it. I was able to do my old tricks. I was pleasantly surprised.
And describe your best trick.
Well, my most consistent trick was doing a back end split. So that is where you are swinging, you kind of turn yourself upside down and backwards with your legs in a split against the bar. And then when you're at the peak of your swing, you let go of the bar and catch the professional on the other side of the trapeze.
Things I never thought I'd hear on this podcast. There you go. There's been a few weird things, but that is definitely up there. So moving on. What is your, that feels like such a ridiculous question, but what is your best bit of data-driven marketing advice? You've been in and around this a while now. And what do you find yourself sharing most often?
The number one piece of advice I actually share, especially to entry-level marketers, is pay attention in finance class. As in the brand management career, we are responsible for the P&L, the top line, the bottom line. I wish I had paid a lot more attention in that class so that I came into the career more comfortable with that aspect of the job, because every time I've been promoted, I find myself learning so much more about the finances of my brands and diving into lines of a P&L I never knew existed before.
So we're now going to talk about your shiny new object, which is storytelling with data. I think I know what that is, but what is your version of that and why is it your shiny new object?
Yeah, I gave a lot of thought to this, Tom, and I wanted to come up with something unique and different, but also something really practical that people could put into use in their careers or in their experiences. And storytelling through data to me means leveraging the information we have available. So as marketers, we are constantly storytelling. Every asset we touch is going to, be part of that consumer decision journey. But one of the biggest pieces is an ad campaign, right? And so as you are concepting a campaign, what doing that through data would mean, mine your consumer reviews to inspire your story, because consumers are telling you how they're using your product. They're telling you how they love your product. And if you can bring that to life, it is so rich.
So practically, how do you do that? So you just do a scrape of everything that has been said on different platforms and then group it all together?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Give someone a sort of a how-to on that.
Yep, absolutely. So we've absolutely done this before. And at Church and Dwight, we have a partner. We use a tool called Yogi, and they pull all of the consumer reviews together from various different platforms, right? Like Amazon, our websites, retail sites, wherever they exist. And there's so many different ways you can look at it, right? Sentiment analysis, trends, word clouds, and finding little nuggets or even piecing nuggets together can really bring that story to life. And we had done that in my prior role as director on TheraBreath mouthwash. We absolutely did that to inspire some of the ad campaigns. But honestly, it goes beyond just concepting. It's the whole process, right? So as you're casting for commercials, you want to make sure that the actors you're bringing in are representative of the consumers using your product, right? So look up your advanced shopper profiles, understand the demographics of who that person is, whether it's race, age, religion, even eating preferences, right? You're telling a whole story here. There's so many different nuances that can come to life. And then as you're planning where you want all your media to be, I think your media mix is a huge part of where data comes into play. So on my team, we have a partner called which helps us understand the ROI for all of the investments that we're making in all of the different channels, right? So learning from prior years, where are we spending our money? Where does it make the most sense to continue, to pull back, to add, optimize every single year?
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. How do you then take it from into a more creative realm? And what I love about your Shiny New Object is just talking about storytelling, which is a very gooey, fluffy, creative discipline, and data, which is like quant and qual, a bit more hard, a bit more scientific. But someone listening to this might still be like, well, look, how do I actually do that? So you've scraped all your reviews, you know which channels are giving you the best ROI, so you know where it's going to go. You've cast successfully because you've taken into account all of the different measures that you mentioned. But then when it comes to the idea, like the genesis of the creative, the gooey, hooky, emotional thing, how do you use data to get to that?
What I've done in the past is it really ends up coming mostly the data we use is the consumer reviews. That's where it's coming from. And then it is on living and breathing your brand in a way that it becomes a part of you and saying, I think you can just identify those concepts that align to your brand and your product's promise to their consumers, right? Like and your positioning in the marketplace.
So you're using that data as a validation for creative concepts, is that right?
Absolutely.
So internal agency or external agency will go, look, we're launching this new product. This is our creative idea. And then your chin scratching moment is like, right, okay, well, here's all the reviews you did. And that becomes a sense check or a guide for the creative idea.
100%. Yes. So there's usually, to your point, a couple of concepts coming in from, the agency, the partner, and the gut check that we need or the way to elevate it is using those consumer reviews to say, how do we make this real? How do we make this resonant? And
why have you gone so big on that particular data point? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just want to get a bit deeper because, social listening, for example, might exist in the same way, or is it a focus group? Is that just not reliable enough, or customer service center, for example? So I'm curious. I love that you're so specific about it, but that's quite rare. People tend to want a kind of a basket of data. I've heard it referred to.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Well, so where we really put this into place was on the TheraBreath campaign, and the first version we did of the Swishy Time campaign used this. We used true consumer stories to bring to life in our advertising, and it worked so well. The results were phenomenal. I mean, the brand just exploded. And so we realized that the truth that was there was just something that couldn't be replicated, otherwise. It was something really unique because no other brand in the space can tell the story that's true to TheraBreath if the consumers are already saying it's true about you. right? It's not like we talked about earlier. So often copycats and copying happens in marketing. One brand's doing it. Oh, we love that. Let's do that for us. But when the story that a brand is telling is so unique, no one else can tell that same story.
I think what's so refreshing about this view is, in contrast to what is happening with the conversation about AI at the minute, and everyone's losing their mind about how AI can save them loads of time and money, I think, which is fine. It's great. Be my guest, go ahead, do that stuff. But I'm writing a book at the minute about the relationship between data, creativity, and advertising. And the thing that really has come through that research over like 40 interviews with senior marketers is this idea that it's all about being empathetic towards the consumer. Like, do you care about them? Have you gone deep with them? Do you understand them? Are you listening to them? Do you see what they see? And then that becomes the foundation for something that's emotional, that actually moves the needle, not plugging in something and just having it whir away in the background and just spew out some copy. And I think what you've said here is exactly that, right? You're being data centric.
You're totally right. You're reminding me that another genesis for us is what we call like in the wild. So I was wearing a TheraBreath sweatshirt on vacation, and someone was like, "Oh my gosh, TheraBreath? You know TheraBreath?" And told me why they love the brand, what was so great about it. That happens a lot. One of those occasions helped spur one of our ad campaigns, right? So a consumer telling me they like to use TheraBreath before they give a big speech because, it helps with dry mouth before public speaking. And now we have an ad campaign with a best man about to go out onto the dance floor to give his best man speech using TheraBreath Dry Mouth.
Brilliant. So yeah, so when you say storytelling with data, what you're really it's almost like, sorry to kind of rewrite your words, but it's like finding stories within the data, as opposed to like, right, we've got a script, now we must data validate every word in that script. It's not like you're not putting storytelling through a machine. You have a process for finding stories from existing data, either online or in the wild, as you say.
I think that's fair.
So if someone wants to get into this, like, so you're in a category where people talk about the product and people come up to you on holiday and accost you and all that kind of stuff. What if you're in a category where that doesn't happen, like a lower interest category where I don't know, insert whatever low interest category you want for the sake of argument, but they're not going to passionately talk about it in a review or within a social place? Or have I got that all wrong? Like every brand has some vocal people.
Well, I'll ask you this. Did you expect people to be passionate about mouthwash?
Yeah, it's home personal care, right? So it's part of how people perceive you, right? So dental oral health is hugely like, yeah, it's in your head. So yes, I think people would be very passionate about it. But I don't know, like car insurance or something else. Like sorry car insurance people, but yeah, anything to do with the body tends to promote quite strong views.
I have not ever worked in a category where consumers aren't passionate. I've worked in laundry detergent. People are passionate about their laundry detergent. I now work in hair care, right? Products that support hair thinning, dry shampoo to get you in between washes. There's a lot of passion, in all of the spaces that I have worked. So I don't think it's fair for me to shed light on something that I don't really have experience in.
And so where do you want to go next with this? So you have this tried and tested technique. Where are you like, maybe we could look at this? Well,
I'll tell you, I just transitioned teams a few months ago. So now on hair care, I'm excited to bring this process to that team and to those businesses for sure, because there's always opportunity to bring those consumer truths and consumer stories to life. And I don't know where it's going to go next. I think consumers need to tell us a little bit. I love leveraging, the data and the tools that are available to us. So it's constantly challenging myself, my team, my partners on making sure, is this all right? Is this all true? Can we go back and validate it, right? Are we casting the right way? Like I mentioned before, are we spending our money in the right places? Like, are we reaching the right consumers with this message?
So, unfortunately, we've run out of time now, and I would love to carry on talking about this and trapeze acts, etc. But if someone wants to get in touch with you to discuss anything we've talked about today, where's a good place to get you, and what makes a message that you will reply to?
LinkedIn is definitely the best place to connect with me. I'm pretty active on there. And I think the best way to reach out is comment on one of my posts before you show up in my inbox. Like, that would be my recommendation.
Ooh, God, we've never had that. That's so good.
Yeah,
so good.
right? Like,
pay the price of entry. Yeah. Right. Yeah, but your comments aren't busy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I'm sure they are. Sorry, I take that back. Okay, brilliant. That's an excellent bit of advice for people who want to contact you. Caitlin, that was perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.